Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go. Rapid fire time.
All right. So, ESPN's FPI gives Notre Dame the best chance of any team in the country to go undefeated this season. So, which do you think is more likely to happen? The Irish go 12-0 or they go 10-2?
I predict that they're going to go 11-1. And so
not an option.
I know. But I think I have a hard time finding the second loss. And so I will say they have a better chance of going 12-0 than 11-1.
You know, we were talking about schedule and strength and all that different stuff earlier this week, and someone pointed out you guys are vastly underestimating Florida State. And I don't think we're underestimating Florida State. Excuse me. I think when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, there's no question that the two toughest games on the schedule should be Texas A&M to open the season and Florida State at home. What is that? The first weekend of November. Like, without a doubt, like, those are the two games that most people are pointing to. And then you've got Louisville after that. That's largely based on what happened last year. We still don't know exactly what Louisville is going to look like this year, but I agree. I don't see multiple losses for this team unless, there's just some great regression in the growth that we've seen from Marcus Freeman, sort of as the CEO of this program over the last couple of years. I think that that's in the back of people's mind, that maybe they're going to lose a game that they shouldn't lose based on the first couple of years. But I'm like you. I don't see two losses this year either. I could see one of those two games. I think it's more likely the Florida State than it is Texas A&M. I still feel really good about Texas A&M because of Notre Dame is going to have the vastly better quarterback that day, and there's going to be just a ton of experience, and I think that they're going to have the better defense on the field that day as well. So I don't see two losses. So I would agree with what you're saying. I think that it's much more likely that they end up 12-0 than 10-2.
Yep. That'd be great. That would be great.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it? So there is some debate on the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge this week about this question. This is kind of a parsed down question. There were other options, but I think it comes down to these two. Which is the better Notre Dame run play? Historically, Kyren Williams in 2021 against North Carolina or Reggie Brooks in 1992 against Michigan?
I meant to look this up so I could remind myself of what the Reggie Brooks run looked like.
Basically, he is bouncing off five different guys like a pinball.
Okay.
And then he bounces off two Wolverine players right before the goal line. And then he falls face first into the end zone, essentially knocked himself out, bouncing off Wolverine.
He blacked out. I remember
getting to the end zone. Right.
I remember him talking about that. He blacked out.
Yes.
I will say his. I will say Reggie Brooks versus Michigan for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's Michigan. Okay. And number two, I just think that it meant more at the time. Look, that's to take nothing away from Kyren Williams and what he was able to do against North Carolina, because he basically did that play all by himself and then outran the entire defense. Like, I get that. I mean, he went the opposite way the play was even supposed to go, if I remember correctly, and was like shedding tackles in the backfield and ends up rattling off like 75 yards.
6 yards deep in the backfield where he stiff arms the North Carolina linebacker. Yes.
But anytime we can stick it to Michigan, that's what I'm going to take. So there you go.
The Kyren Williams run is, bar none, the best Notre Dame run I have seen in person. Now, that only goes back 25 years since I started watching Notre Dame games in person. So that is the best run that I have seen in person. And again, I watched both of them today.
Okay.
And you're right. Williams goes to his right. He sheds basically a tackle there at the line of scrimmage, bounces back the other way, 6 yards deep in the backfield, throws the stiff arm off.
Right.
Or throws the stiff arm out, and then hits the sideline, and then bolts down the sideline the rest of the way. Got a beautiful block from Michael Mayer. You might remember down the sideline. And I remember at the time talking about it afterwards. I like for the Game of Thrones fans out there, I compared Michael Mayer to a dragon. It's like Kyren Williams is coming down the sideline, and it's like, boom, I got a dragon in front of me, and the dragon is Michael Mayer, and he's flame torching, the North Carolina defense. Get out of the way! And then there goes Kyren Williams down the sideline the rest of the way. But I mean, he only broke 2 tackles. And then, like, reminding myself, going back and watching the Reggie Brooks play, it's like, it's just amazing, because it's like, he goes this way and it's like, boom. And then he almost goes down and he breaks this tackle. He breaks this. He's literally, just bouncing off defenders. 5 different tackles he broke. Sheer effort, to get to the end zone. And then he literally knocks himself out, falling face first into the end zone. So I've got to go with the Reggie Brooks run. Beautiful. Both of them beautiful in their own right. But I've got to go with the Reggie Brooks run just for the sheer determination that he had and all the tackles that he broke to get there.
Absolutely.
So Ryan is the avatar for Tommy now, apparently. Did you guys get to my other questions? Are you going to read my questions?
We read a bunch of them. I don't know if we got them all. We read a bunch of them.
We read at least 3, if not 4.
It was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there were other ones earlier that we missed, were there cookie questions or something like that as well? I don't know. Yeah, I would also say, just like to this run thing, honorable mention, Tony Rice, 1988 against USC, the run down the sideline. I don't know if you like awesome. That is one, because I remember watching that one live. Literally, buddy of mine and I in the Army were like holed up in our room. We finished off a few beverages that day.
Let's just say
I remember, but I do remember vividly this run, in that Southern California sunshine, Tony Rice with that golden helmet going down the sideline for Notre Dame against the Trojans. Another beautiful run. Fill in the blank. It's blank that in my interview with Notre Dame All-American point guard Hannah Hidalgo yesterday, she told me she never talked to UConn head coach Gino Auriemma during her recruiting process.
I mean, is Gino not recruiting good players anymore? Or like that blows my mind, because she was one of the best recruits out there. I mean, one of the best recruits out there. How do you not make contact with her? Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. That's befuddling.
It shocked me, and I felt like, okay, I probably, should have followed up a little bit more, but I also, because, she's a college player and I didn't kind of want to, put her on the spot and turn it, you know what I mean? Like, turn it into this thing. But Caitlin Clark has said she never talked to Gino during her recruiting process. Hannah Hidalgo never talked to Gino during her recruiting. I mean, these are literally 2 of the best players in the country over the last 5 years in women's college basketball.
Gino's getting lazy on us, Sean. That's what's happening. He's getting lazy, or he is not very good at, identifying wonderfully transcendent players. How about that?
National championship drought is growing longer.
It will continue to grow longer too, as long as
much to the love of the rest of the country
keeps doing what she's doing.
That's right. That's right. So I found it pretty curious. I thought it was very odd. I was, I asked her that, and I was kind of expecting to hear some sort of, Gino story. Like, nope, never talked to him.
Wow.
Very curious. Again, especially when you combine it with the fact that Caitlin Clark never did either. So I don't know.
Crazy.
So Fox NFL analyst Greg Olsen says NFL announcers would have an easier time calling NBA games than vice versa because of the pace of basketball and the accessibility of the sport. He did an interview with Pardon My Take, and Olsen said the constant stop and start of football forces broadcasters to fill more airtime and have something real to say before and after every play. Whereas in basketball, he says, it's just as complex as sport, but he says that he and other NFL announcers could basically fake their way through the small pockets in a basketball broadcast more easily. So, Vince, you have called both with me. Now, granted, radio versus TV, so there is at least, slight difference.
Correlation, though.
But do you buy or sell Olsen's take on this?
So, I know this is going to shock you, but I've got two answers. So I've got an answer for a color analyst, and I've got an answer as a play-by-play analyst or play-by-play person.
Well, I mean, he's predominantly talking as an analyst, I think, but you can give your answer to both still.
So if he's talking about as a color person, I 1,000% agree with him. I agree completely that it's easier to do color for basketball than it is for football. Because I think number one, I think football is more intricate of a sport. I think you have to explain X's and O's a little bit better. I think you have to have a better understanding of the game in order to call it well for football than you do for basketball. Basketball, if you have a knowledge of basketball, you can be a color guy for basketball pretty easily. I think more research has to be done when you're doing a football game. I think there are more stoppages, and where you do need to have them back and forth in football. It's even harder in baseball, but we're talking about football and basketball. I think he's absolutely right in that regard. The play-by-play side of things, I think it's easier to be a play-by-play person for football than it is for basketball. I think basketball's so much harder because I think you have to know more players on a basketball roster because the ball is going to all five players at one point or another, and there's subs, and there's this, and there's that. You don't have to know quite as much about a team to call a football game. Now, the more knowledge you have, the better off you are from a play-by-play standpoint. I'm not talking about the banter. I'm talking about the actual calling of a play. I think you can call a football play easier than calling basketball because it's not start-stop. It's continuous back and forth, and you have to find places to bring your color guy in, which is a little bit more difficult to do as well.
I think especially when it comes to TV, that basketball is easier because of the fact that you have the picture, and especially like when you're talking about the analyst play-by-play back, like kind of what Olsen is saying, it is easier in basketball because since you do have the picture, to back you up, you can essentially just keep talking about whatever. You don't necessarily have to be on point with the play. So I do think that football is harder because it is much more regimented, kind of what he's talking about. Like you and I, obviously know this, and there are analysts who have had not named Vince, who have kind of, annoyed me at times because it's like literally, okay, football, regardless of if it's TV or radio, when the play starts, the play-by-play announcer calls the play stops, analyst jumps in. Analysts now, you've got until they break the, if there's a huddle, you've got until they get to the line of scrimmage to get in your stuff, spit your game, and then get out. And it's the play-by-play's job again. You can't keep going past, up to and after the snap of the football. It's definitely 100%. More regimented. And for that, I think that it is a little bit more challenging just because basketball is more free-flowing. Now, I still think that regardless of what sport it is, the main job of the analyst is to just make sure you know your stuff, regardless of what sport it happens to be. You have to know, you have to know the rule. You have to be, talk about, if it's basketball, is it a pick? And, they talk about pocket pat, all this different stuff. You have to know it. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can't go in without knowledge. It's so obvious when especially, I listen to a lot of high school and stuff like that. It's so obvious when people have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And it's just, I end up yelling at the TV and or radio or something like that. It's super frustrating when somebody's not prepared, to be perfectly honest with you. And a lot more preparation goes into it than people think. I will say that much.
Correct. I can back you up with that. Fill in the blank. The NFL is going to the XFL kickoff rule this season. And the fact that Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker says he's tried to bulk up because he says kickers are involved in around 25% of the tackles with this XFL kickoff rule is blank.
A very interesting stat. And, the funny thing is, usually when you send questions to me, it's the first time I'm hearing about things. Somebody sent me that article.
Really?
The strength and conditioning coach at Penn High School, where my son goes, sent me that article. And he's like, Dylan better get ready to roll this year. And it's funny because he wants to tackle people. But then, obviously high school isn't doing this type of new system or whatever. But I love the fact, look, he's the best kicker in the NFL, arguably, maybe not arguably, in the history of the NFL. And he's going out there bulking up, willing to make tackles, man. Like, I dig that. I think that's fantastic. Whereas a lot of other people are just going to be shying away from it and trying not to be a part of it. I think that's knowing your game, number one, and understanding how the changes of the game are going to affect you, and then having a plan. I think that's awesome.
Well, and the fact that Justin Tucker has always come off as one of the, smarter.
He's very intelligent.
Very cerebral. Especially for a kicker type guy. And so the fact that he has studied something like this and he's putting a percentage on it, even if he's fudging by 5%, 20% is still
that's a lot,
quite a bit. That's one out of every 5 kickoffs, that you're kicking out there. So, one, I think it's very wise of him to try to be adding a little bit extra muscle. 2, I think I would just be muscling up and not even messing around. Just get it into the end zone. Just get the ball into the end zone. 3, if that's the case, if that's the number, I would almost just send my punter out there on the field or have,
somebody
another kicker who's
tackling.
Not the field goal guy. Do you want an offensive weapon like Justin Tucker potentially risking injury?
Sure.
Because that's probably at least a couple times per game that he's potentially, putting his body at risk out there. I would want him avoiding that contact if at all possible.
I don't want to minimize what kickers do. Obviously, I'm the father of a kicker, and kicking the ball far like that is not an easy task. But if you could find a position player, specifically a defensive position player, that can just boot the ball into the end zone or boot it far enough, and now you've literally got a tackler, on the field, as opposed to having your kicker on the field. And you said punter, which I totally get because they're used to maybe making more plays than a kicker. But if you can, there have been times where, the kicker gets hurt and they have a safety out there kicking or a wide receiver or something like that. Find somebody that can just boot the ball 45 yards down the field or whatever, and then now you've got an extra tackler on the field too. I think there's some truth to that potential as well.
That's true. That's very true. Going back to the play-by-play, Father David says from a play-by-play standpoint, he thinks baseball would be the easiest, I would think, but it is the most challenging to keep people engaged. Seems like you have to be more of a storyteller. The storyteller part is true. Easiest, yes. I would say no, because it is so much, it's so less regimented, especially than football, and even to an extent from basketball, because of the fact that there is so much, just air to fill, especially in a radio broadcast. You do have to be a good storyteller, but to me, pacing is the biggest thing in baseball. That's when you listen to baseball guys, most of the guys that you're going to see in here on TV, they're obviously at a much higher point, but it's the pacing, I think, that really helps to, that really distinguishes a baseball play-by-play guy, because I've listened to so many different people over the years, and they're especially ones guys who call college baseball, for example, on ESPN. You're going to get a lot different degrees of experience and what actually sounds good. I think at that level, that's probably there are too many guys who want to spit information at you like a machine gun, or, empty their notebook on the first at bat of a game. It's learning how, to sort of parse your information and spread it out over the course of the broadcast. I think, those are the most important things, I think, from a baseball standpoint.
Baseball is hard. I will say that, because you have to have that requires the absolute most preparation.
Yes.
and this is me witnessing you do baseball for so long, and like the binders that you would have of information, not only in the binder, but then also on your scorecard and all of these different things. And like,
right.
I'll never forget, like you would mention a fun fact about a player and then just cross that one off. Okay, can't go back to that one today.
I've used that. Yep, that's right.
And then you've got, all the rest of your bullet points that you can get to at some point in the game. And you don't want to, use everything you've got early, because then you've got nothing for later. You know what I mean? And so the pacing is super important when it comes to baseball, but there's so much downtime. Not only, and you used to do so many games solo, which is super hard to do, in my opinion. Like, it was so much. I can see why, like, back when I was I felt like I was a kid when you would have me come do games with you. It's just so you have somebody else to talk to. Like, it wasn't because I was any good at it. It was like, hey, at least you've got another person that you can bounce some stuff off of,
right,
as opposed to just doing it solo. And I see that now. But I mean, I can't even imagine doing it.
And it's funny about the storytelling thing. And obviously, over time, like, that's just something that you develop over time.
Sure.
One, the ability to do it, and two, the stories that you get. But like,
that's true too.
I would hear from, like, girlfriends of players and, like, parents of players are like, oh, Sean Stiers, he's always got those stories. He's always telling those stories. And it's like, that's how you get through 9 innings by yourself, or God forbid, 15 innings by yourself, or 16 innings by yourself. Right. You better have something other than just a couple of stats out there. You gotta have a, like you said, man, you gotta, like, and that's really, I think, the sport where, like, you probably at best most of the time use 60 or 65% of the stuff that you end up prepping for,
which is
just because
great.
Yeah. And if you're lucky, then you've got it to use the next day.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
So Joey Chestnut's not going to be allowed to participate in the 4th of July Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest because he's endorsing a different hot dog brand. It's actually a plant-based hot dog made by Impossible Foods, which is a competitor to Nathan's, which, of course, puts on the hot dog contest. So will the exclusion of the 8-time reigning hot dog eating Nathan's champion make you more likely or less likely to watch next month's contest?
I will say more likely, because I want to see who's going to step up and take that title. Because if Joey Chestnut was involved, not only does he win, but he wins like going away. Like, it's not even close. And so who's going to win? I think that's even more intriguing than watching Joey Chestnut do what he does. And I can safely say I would say on average, I probably watch it once every 3 years or so. I believe last year, of all places, I think we were in a restaurant on vacation, and it was on TV in the restaurant. And so I was watching it happen. And of course, my wife was grossed out and, things like that. But like, I was watching it. And honestly, the best part about the hot dog eating contest is the announcer. Have you ever heard him, like the live announcer?
Oh, yeah. The guy and he's the guy, I think, who's like, he's actually the main guy in charge of that, I think.
Okay. Like, he's
the guy
hilarious.
with the straw hat and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Introductions.
Yes. He's hilarious. I love listening to him do his thing. But I think it's going to be interesting to see who wins it. Who's number 2, basically.
Yeah, I think that I'm less likely to watch. And I mean, typically what happens on the 4th of July, it's like I forget that it's on. And so then at 5 o'clock, they'll show a replay, or I'll just hit record and come back. And, but you'll already have heard about it by then. And it's like Chestnut is lapping the field basically when it comes to it. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot more competitive without him, but he was still the draw, like,
yeah, that's true.
He's really, became the main reason that I ever watched. Like, I don't remember really, like, him and Kobayashi. I don't really remember a whole lot of.
There's the ones I remember.
Leaders besides that,
Black Widow is usually the best female, or she has been. I don't know if she still is. And then Kobayashi, and then Joey Chestnut. Those are the only 3 I can name.
And there was that guy Eater X. Do you remember him from a few years back?
Not really.
Yeah, he like painted his face and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
But I don't, it's like I don't know that he ever actually did that well. But
these guys are all have their shtick, Yeah.
Bernie wants to know favorite MLB announcers. My two favorite, John Miller. He's with the Giants now. He used to be. Remember, John Miller and Joe Morgan used to do ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Bald guy. John Miller of the San Francisco Giants. Gary Cohen of the New York Mets. Those are my two favorite play-by-play guys by far in Major League Baseball.
Am I allowed to pick Bob Uecker? Is he still doing it?
Sure. Yeah, I think he's still around.
Come on, it's Bob Uecker. Let's go.
I do like. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? The Cubs radio guy. I can't think of his.
Yeah. Pat Hughes.
Pat Hughes. There you go.
Pat Hughes is fantastic. Pat Hughes is my favorite by far, and it's not close.
Yeah.
I love listening to Pat Hughes. Like he just has so much knowledge and so much love of the game and so much love of the Cubs. He went on not a tirade, but like a whole thing about how, the only thing he's ever wanted to say was World Series champions, Chicago Cubs. And he got that opportunity, obviously being a radio guy. And so like, just a real genuine guy.
Yep. Brent wants to know if I'm aware of Kuiper and Krukow, San Francisco Giants. I am. I like John Miller better though. They're not bad. I just like John Miller better. And like if I'm doing my tiers, it's Miller and Gary Cohen. So
I like Jason Benetti. I think he's good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He went from the White Sox to the Tigers.
Yeah.
But he's good. I like him.
I tell you what, man, that have you ever listened to that White Sox guy that they got to replace him this year?
No, I have not.
He is so bad.
Not good, huh?
So bad. Just because he is OTT when it comes to over the top with his wheeze and literally like either cheering for or like ripping umps and all this. He is
so
bad.
He went to the Hawk Harrelson school of announcing. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
He's fairly young. I don't he's
but at least Hawk played for the White Sox. I mean,
right.
Look, I am not a fan of Hawk Harrelson because of my affinity for the Cubs versus the White Sox, right? And the wheeze and all that really got annoying. But he at least played for him. I mean, he was at least part of the team as a player. So right. I can at least give that a slight pass, but it was still too much. I called everybody by their first name and that was a little too much. But
yeah,
it
just feels like this guy. I think like Schifrin is his name, maybe, or something like that. His last name. It feels like he's sucking up to ownership. Just the way he goes about broadcasting games as a first year guy, because there's a lot more of that. Like Steve Stone, man. I don't know how Steve Stone sits in the booth with that guy. It is cringe, is what it is.
Oh, I might have to tune in here at some point.
I can't believe how bad it is. All right, Relic, thanks for another super chat. Now he's officially an IB Boards insider. First-time poster, long-time listener. Tell the others.
Nice.
Thank you very
much. Relic is in. Love it. Thanks for the super chat.
Vince, you taking any vacations this year? Troll Hunter wants to know.
Yep. We're leaving last week of July. Not for a full week. Sunday to Thursday. So I'll miss the first day of football practice, unfortunately. But my vacation was made before they put that out. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Tyler Evans wants to know how we will remember Jerry West. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not old enough to remember him playing. Easy. So, I mean, I basically remember him as a longtime Lakers executive and the logo.
Yeah. There it is. That's how I remember Jerry West, as the logo. Yep. Because I never watched him play. So
Pepper Brooks, number 1. I love it.
Who's Pepper Brooks?
Isn't that the guy from Dodgeball?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I think that's who we're talking about, right?
I didn't know his last name, I guess. Okay, yeah, because he always just says Pepper. Okay, yeah. I like that.
Yep, that's it. All right, don't forget, tomorrow is We In, We Out Day on the show, and the place to submit your We In, We Out questions is the Champions Lounge, or, if you don't get them in the Champions Lounge, I guess you can just show up here and go super chat. The way you guys had some super chats at the end of your show.
We did.
Tonight. So
we did.
Go super chat if that's
super
what you want to do. All right. So that's going to do it. Appreciate you being here. A lot of good questions tonight. And we will talk to you tomorrow for the We In and We Out show. Don't forget, if you missed it yesterday, had the interview with Hannah Hidalgo, and you can find it either on our YouTube channel, Hannah Hidalgo interview, or of course, Apple, Spotify, wherever it happens to be. You can find the Hannah Hidalgo interview there. A lot of interesting stuff with her. We obviously, talked about her great season, as well as getting ready to play with Olivia Miles and all that kind of good stuff. So we've had Olivia about a month ago. So we've got interviews with both of them that you can find up on all our different platforms right now. Hit the like button, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.